All right, so now we're going to look at self-image. And self-image is a very important topic to marketers. If they can build their product to align to your self-image, to make you feel that buying their product is going to help you achieve your self-image or make you look like you have the self-image that you're trying for, then that's good for them. That's really good for them. And they're going to do everything in their power to get into your self-image. So it's an important topic, and there's lots of different images, not just one. So let's take a look, and I hope you enjoyed the topic. We know we buy to our senses and our experience, and we buy a little bit because we're social. But do we buy to our self-image? Is that something we do? And I have a couple of commercials here that really look at a man's self-image and a woman's self-image. And I think you should take a look at them, really analyze the commercials, and see if you can see the self-image, you know, the thing in there that applies to self-image. So we have a lot of different images. We have our public self and we have our private self. And they sometimes are in concert with one another, and oftentimes they are not. Our public self is the one that we show to other people, right? Our private self is the one that nobody knows except ourselves. And if you look at people like John Wayne Gacy, who was a famous serial killer here in the United States, he was a pillar of his community. A pillar of his community. He was a deacon, and he worked with the Boy Scouts, and he killed 33 women. So he was married, he had children, and he was the kind of guy who had this great public image, but had a completely different private image. And his private self and his public self were not in concert with one another. We call that incongruity. We call that self-image incongruity. Can it change? There's a lot of debate about that. Can a person's self-image change? Can John Wayne Gacy change? You know, is that possible? And the answer to that from some people is no. Our self-image is our self-image. His private self is something that isn't going to change. And other people feel yes, it can change. So watch the two commercials, the one about hair and the one about listening, and see if you can pick up the self-image in there. I just want to cover incongruity and congruity a little bit more. So when you have incongruity, that is when your public self and your private self are not aligned, or when your actual self-image and your ideal self-image are so far apart that they're not aligned, and so you have an incongruity that occurs. When you have congruity, it's easier for you to feel like you're able to satisfy your self-image. And watch the video. And take a look at the sunglasses here. Those are $268,000. Obviously a little bit of conspicuous consumption, right? But it also tells us something about the person who would spend those and wear it. And guys, if you and I saw those sunglasses, we may not know that they were worth $268,000. So it isn't us that they're trying to show off to. It's people who have similar self-images to them. And these are the four major self-images that a person deals with. The first is the actual self-image, you know, how you see yourself. How do you picture yourself? How do you see yourself? That may or may not, as we just talked about in the previous slide, have congruity with what your ideal self is. And your ideal self is how you would like to see yourself. How would you like to see yourself? And then there's what we call the social self-image. And that's how you think others see you, how you think others see you. You do have an image of what you think other people think of you, and then the ideal social self-image is how you would like other people to see you. So there are four basic categories of image, and we buy to all of these different images. Because today's lifestyle is very technological and very online, we do also have a virtual self. And the virtual self can be very different than any of the other selves that we've talked about. I can project on the internet through avatars and information a completely different person than I actually am in life. And we see this happen a lot. People get fooled by people who are on the internet because they're nothing like they expect, right? 52-year-old men posing as a beautiful 18-year-old woman so that they can get people to send them money. So we see this happening a lot, And this is now called the virtual self. It's something that has come about in the last 10 to 15 years. We also have different roles, and people mistake roles for self-image. A lot of different roles and images in those roles that we buy to. So I might have an image as a parent, what kind of parent I want to be, right? I only want to buy organic, I want to buy the best of this, I want to make sure I have the safest equipment. I might be have a completely different image. I might be the kind of parent that wants to live a bohemian lifestyle, takes my kid everywhere, breastfeeds in public, and then I might be a completely different who says I'll never breastfeed in public. You see where I'm going. We all have images inside of these roles as to what the ideal person in that role is. What's the ideal parent? What is the ideal worker, teammate, student? And sometimes we buy to those roles as well. So we've got a self-image, an overall picture of ourselves, but then we also have these smaller segmented pictures of ourselves. What are we like as a parent? What are we like as a student? What are we like as a daughter? What are we like as a son? These are also parts and pieces of that overall self-image. And yeah, we definitely buy to these. This picture is an example of incongruity in our social self. And you can find pictures like this, or you could find a picture of, a woman my size with a monster truck. That's an incongruity in the way other people see us. So this is just an example. By the way, that's a cat he's walking. So can we have parts of our self-image that are not achieved, but our overall self-image is still positive? The answer to that is yes. You can have an overall self-image that's very positive, but still have areas that you don't feel you're quite up to snuff. So you might say, for example, my gray hair doesn't match my persona, so I'm gonna color my gray hair, but overall I'm pretty happy with where I stand in that situation. The other thing is you can be in the opposite direction. You can have a self-image that's very bad, but have some areas that you feel like you're achieving your self-image. And these are constantly in flux and in change. As we move along life and we go through different parts of our existence, our social image can go from good to bad and bad to good, or it could just always stay good or always stay bad. One of the aspects that marketers use in our personality is what's affectionately called as striving marketing messages. And this is to make you feel like you're not quite there yet. You're not where you need to be in your image. So these are really good examples. All of these videos that you see here are really good examples of ways that they get you to think, I'm not there, but if I buy this product, I do this thing, I belong to this group, I am going to get closer to my self-image. So watch the commercials and see if you can see where the message to strive or do better comes in, and how they associate their product with your striving to get to that better situation. In addition to striving marketing, we have the opposite side of the fence. We have demeaning marketing. And demeaning marketing is supposed to show you how far away from your self-image or ideal self-image you really are, and that if you bought these products, it would get you closer to your self-image because it would eliminate some of that distance. I'm not a fan of demeaning marketing, but there are times when companies use it. And I think it's a dangerous area. I think it's very dangerous because people can associate your product in the wrong way. But there's a couple of commercials here. One is the Bud Light card collection, and the other is the Geico drill sergeant, that make fun of people and demean them. If you want to take a look, you certainly can. So can we ever get to our self-image? Well, if marketers had their way, they would tell you no, you cannot get to your self-image, and they would keep putting the self-image just out of your reach so that you had to buy more and more and more products in order to get there. And there is, there's the self-image image, and then there's the anti-self-image image, right? I am so far above self-image that I don't have to have a self-image. So I'm going to show you a commercial here. It's the last one down, that uses the anti-self-image to get you to have the anti-self-image. It's crazy. The way we look at anti-self-image is it's a type of image. So see if you agree. and watch the commercial. At least watch that one if you don't watch the others. I'm often asked if self-image and self-esteem are the same, and there is a difference between the two. So self-image is, trying to get to that level to see yourself the way you want to be seen, but self-esteem is more about failure avoidance. There are commercials that talk about self-esteem, and there are commercials that try to set an image that if you buy my product, you're going to get closer to this ideal. There are now a bunch of commercials that talk about self-esteem, such as the Dove commercials for women, and the model commercial that shows the model going through a lot of changes and saying there isn't any way for real people to get to this. So there are self-esteem commercials, but the commercials we're talking about in this particular deck are more about self-image.